Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Wait, you're
There,
on.
I muted myself. Just making sure I'm coming through my headphones. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so anyway, first of all, I just want to say it's amazing what you're doing. So awesome. Are you a junior or a senior? Are
Yeah, I'm
you
gonna be a junior this coming
oh,
year.
fantastic. Awesome. Wow. And you're already making content. It's incredible. Uh, really, really awesome. It's an honor to be here with you. And so, like, whatever questions you want me to answer, that's what I'm here for.
It seems like you've done a lot of really impressive things in your career. So I know you started your career in production and worked in the union world for almost a decade and worked on things like 30 Rock, Ugly Betty, White Collar, and that's one of my favorite TV shows actually.
Really? Oh, amazing.
And since then, you've taken another path and you've created your own production company, which I've looked at your website and your content, and like I've really enjoyed it, and it's actually really inspiring to me because it's something I really love to do and something I maybe want to pursue in the future. So yeah, it was really cool to get to learn about that and explore that. So my first question is, how did you become interested in filmmaking and the film world in the first place, and where did that passion begin for you?
Sure. Thank you. It's a great question. And Sophia, you're doing amazing stuff already. So I think for me, from a very young age, I always wanted to kind of be on camera, and I was the baby of the family, and my dad had video cameras, and this is back in the '80s when video cameras were this, size of, a VCR. You basically had to carry around on your shoulder a tape recorder, and then the camera was a separate unit. And my dad actually had one of those, and I remember just being fascinated with how all of that stuff worked. And then as I got a little bit older, I started to actually make my own movies with my dog and also my friends with, VHS cameras. And then they became high 8, I think, and then down to DV. So this was obviously the kind of back in the videotape, not so digital world of the early 90s. So I don't know. I liked to kind of be a, a class clown a little bit too. So when I attended Middletown High School South, I know you're a North student, so I like to say we all get along. And I would always take on the video projects in school. And I think really in my high school years, which were in the 90s, back in that decade, that's when video projects started to become more prevalent. And so I just remember in my history class with the teacher was Mr. Brennan, actually. I remember him assigning video projects, and I started to become really involved with doing more editing on a non-linear editing system on a computer. And my mom was amazing at kind of like keeping me up with technology at that point. She made sure I had a computer that could do that. And at that point, this is before Premiere, before Final Cut, before any of this, there were these video cards you would like put into your computer, and it would take an analog feed from for say like a video camera or something like that, and you could digitize the footage. And then working in things, I can remember they were called like Pinnacle Video System. I think Pinnacle's still around, but I don't know. I always had a fascination for the visual medium of storytelling. And then I just kind of thought that would be something I wanted to go into. And I think a lot of people think like, oh, I want to be a director, or, oh, I want to be an actor. And they think of these top level positions. And for me, I always kind of thought, oh yeah, directing would be cool. I don't really know what that means. We have these idols that we grow up with, like Spielberg and Scorsese and these big names in Hollywood. And I think that I had an idea of like, oh, well, let me see what it's all about. And so I don't know, that's how I got into it. And I just always liked creating and using video to tell a story.
You went to Montclair, right?
I did, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, going there?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I graduated South in 99, and then I went right into, I remember at Montclair, Larry Landino, Dave Sanders, and actually Dave Sanders is still there, and he's the head of the broadcasting and communications department. he's an incredible professor. I remember having an interview with Larry, and he said, there's two types of people in the world, those problem identifiers and problem solvers. Which one do you want to be? And that stuck with me. And he was a producer, like a true news media producer. And I just really, I was so excited about it. And it was the only school in New Jersey that I really looked at, as opposed to like Glassboro State, which I believe became Rowan, and then Rutgers, that had a really solid media program. And it was also 30 minutes via bus from New York City. And so I was like, I think this is where I have to be. Over the last 5 years, actually, I think it was about 5 years ago, they revitalized and revamped the Dumont TV Center, and they injected a ton of, new technology into that. But it was a small little TV studio with a couple of multi-camera, it was news based more than, say, narrative or, any of these other types of genres. And I don't know, I did an interview there, and they said, you're accepted to Montclair. And I think it was like my only choice, really, because of the proximity to New York, and also the program that they had was just incredible. And to this day, I would say it's one of the best universities to go to for media production.
I have a few friends that are in the film program at my school, and a lot of my friends are going there, or like already enrolled there. So that was cool. That's like,
oh my gosh, they're gonna have an amazing time, and yeah. Maybe you'll end up checking it out at some point as well.
Yeah, maybe. After college, how did you? I know you did a lot with like the union and stuff. How did you get into that and start working on those like bigger films and those bigger projects?
Sure. Absolutely. So I did an internship, and internships are the way in for anyone that works in the media, TV, film industries. And a lot of times you can do an internship for credit through your university. So this is something that you want to go and you want to research right away. You want to go to your advisor or even a professor and say, hey, how can I get an internship? I'm not sure if you could do that when you're a freshman or sophomore, but it might be more in your junior and senior years when you've completed your general education requirements and all those types of things, and you've kind of whittled down what you want your major to be. You look for something that you want to do, and you can get these at news networks. You can go intern at the Daily Show. There's tons of opportunities. I know we're in a little bit of a flux right now. I'm not sure how many internship opportunities are going to be happening on site over the next year or two, but I do think they will return. Of course, everything will look a little different, but for me, it was just finding an internship that was going to bring me into the industry. And that was my foot in the door. And it was unpaid. I think there was a stipend provided for commuting and travel, but it was for credit. So, but honestly, it paid in dividends so much more than money could have ever, because it was about the connections that I was making. And I think that's really what I would stress to any high schooler or going into college, is it's all about connections. It is about networking and meeting people, and also deciding kind of what you want to do. And don't think that you can't change, your path, because I kind of did. Midway through my career, I said, I don't, know if this is exactly what I want to be doing anymore. You can always change paths. And for me, so I started interning on at like a small media company. Actually, I'll back up just a little bit. I was really interested in music, and I first got an internship at Atlantic Records, which is still around, but it was at the height of kind of the record companies tanking due to the release of iTunes and kind of this Napster and the MP3 revolution. And it was very stressful. Everyone was stressed out all the time. And I was like, I don't know, 20-year-old kid who just was excited to literally, I was like running newspaper clippings around to people, and it was super exciting for me. And I remember one day, somebody yelled at me for something, and I was like, I don't know if this is the industry I want to be in. And so I went back to the advisor and said, I think I want to do something more in TV production, media, this types of thing. And I got a job at Atlas Media, which is still around, and they do a lot of reality. And at that point, they were doing some shows for the Food Network. And I don't know, I just kind of just did whatever they told me to do. So yeah, my suggestion is look into internships as soon as you possibly are afforded the ability to do so.
Yeah, actually, last summer, I wasn't able to this summer, but I'm also interested in like theater and stuff. Like I like on stage stuff too. So I had an internship at Count Basie Theater, which is in Red
Oh, amazing.
Bank. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that was like a really cool experience for me. And I know some of my friends, they I forget. Oh, they at Brookdale they have like a news. I forget what it's called. Like the news place. One of my friends did that, which I actually went on a field trip there. Which I don't know. I might be interested in doing that, but I don't know.
Well, Brookdale is a great option as well, and they do have some video editing and media courses and film courses. So that's a great option if you wanted to start and just dip your toe. And if you're, because I think the transition from high school to full, college is a really hard one. Mm-hmm. So if you do a couple of years at a community college, that's a great option for someone who's just coming out of high school and not 100% sure about what it is they exactly want to do, because are we ever really sure? So yeah, that's amazing.
What was your first big production? How did you work yourself up?
Well, the first big production I worked on was that Food Network show as an intern, and it was called Top 5. And I think I went above and beyond what the internship asked me to do. I think the internship was Monday to Friday, and I think I went in on Wednesdays and Fridays for 5 hours, and they had me logging tapes, which is a pretty typical thing. I mean, now technology with transcriptions and automated transcriptions, there's pretty much no tape logging anymore, but literally what I would do is I'd sit there and I'd watch a tape and I would transcribe it word for word. And then I would put in time codes of when those things were said, and I would give a document to the producer. And that's how they would assemble the shows. But then one day they said, hey, tomorrow is Saturday, and we're going to the studio, and we're going to be shooting all the interstitials for the show. Can you come? And I was like, sure, yeah, I'll show up on a Saturday, no problem. And I showed up early, and I worked. I think they paid me for that day as a production assistant. It was above and beyond what the internship was asking me to do. And I think at that point, I was starting to really make the connections with the people that would give me my future jobs, and they saw the work ethic. And I think that is really important to stress is, whatever it is that you're doing, you got to do it 100%, and you have to apply yourself, even if it is that sometimes I was being asked to go get coffee, or if I was asked to clean up a set, or, make sure that those people don't talk over there, do holding, these types of things that we do as entry-level positions in the production industry. I'm not going to say all of it's like that, but there are sometimes, certain tasks that you may be like, I didn't know I was going to be doing this. For me, it was always like, you got it, 100%, I'll take care of it. And I think those producers all moved on to actually work on the 3rd season of the first Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, which is before the Queer Eye for the Straight Guy that's on Netflix now. Well, Scout Productions had one that was on Bravo in the early 2000s. So I went to work in the office on that show, and I say that was the first really big production I was part of, and I was working in the office with those same producers from that Food Network show. What happened was the executive in charge of production on the Food Network show kind of brought her crew over to the new season of Queer Eye. And I think that happens a lot of times in the TV industry is people have the people they like to work with, and they kind of travel in units to different jobs as those jobs end. And so, yeah, those were the first few things I did. And then I think what happened is suddenly I was kind of thrown into a very challenging position on that season of Queer Eye, where I was working in the field, and I was extremely, it was very challenging for me at that point, and I didn't really know. I was in too deep, I would say. So I actually had to leave the show, and thankfully, I had made some connections with some people who were going to be filming a summer movie in LBI in New Jersey. And I don't know, again, it just always comes back to who you know and the reputation that you develop for yourself as you go through your career. And I think it was only a week I had no job, and then I was hired on that movie in New Jersey on the beach. So the film was called Greetings from the Shore, and it is somewhere out in the internet. But that was a summer movie that I acted as the second assistant director on, which is basically you work with talent and bring them to set, and you're on walkie, and it was a great experience from having been an office production assistant on Queer Eye. It was a cool change of pace. I think the next opportunity I got, though, was to work in the office again as an assistant production coordinator. Actually, it was a production secretary at that point. So production offices, if you don't know much about production offices, they're run by a person called the production coordinator, and under the production coordinator, there's an assistant production coordinator. It's a production secretary, which may be becoming an antiquated term, but that is what the position is known as. But they could be anybody, and then there's production assistants that work in the office, and that office is like the central nervous system of a film. Every single film has one. Every movie, every TV show has a central production office. Sometimes several, if they're going to be doing shoots in different locations. So, like if you're going to be shooting in France, you get a French production office. If you're going to be having a unit that shoots in LA, you'd have an LA production office. So, and a lot of the shows that I worked on had LA writing teams and New York production. So there'd be an LA writer's office. And so I worked on a show that was a spin-off of Law and Order called Conviction. And it was shot at the Kaufman Astoria Studios in Queens, and I was the production secretary. So basically my responsibilities were to help keep the production moving. And essentially what that central nervous system of the office does is we support the line producer and the unit production manager and every single department. And we're directly responsible for making sure that communications get out, call sheets, scripts, that things are being emailed, that actors are getting their travel. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, everything down to making sure there's coffee in the kitchen at the production office. These hiring certain key crew members, proofing credits. I mean, the list really goes on and on and on. It's all about logistics. It's about problem solving. If you want to be a producer in the TV industry, it's a great entry level arena to kind of play in, because you start to learn everything that goes on, all the key players, and what every department does. So I worked on that Law and Order show, and I met, obviously, again, I'm going to bring it back to connections and networking. I met some amazing people there. Shortly thereafter, I moved into working at 30 Rock. I worked on the first season of 30 Rock. Of course, Tina Fey and Alec Baldwin and Tracy Jordan were around all the time. Amazing people, really, really kind, really incredibly, respectful, and always would come in and say hello to the production office. And what was really cool about 30 Rock was the writer's office was attached to the production office. So we were in the mix of what the writers were doing. And Tina Fey was obviously the head writer with Robert Carlock. They went on to create Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt together. And these were writers that had been on huge shows like Mad About You and Friends, and just really, really incredible resumes of the people that came together to create 30 Rock. And I was there at the first season, and it was just such a cool job. Jerry Kupfer was the producer, incredible producer, really just made it feel like home. I remember feeling incredibly grateful that I was there at that time. It was nonstop. I I could say that we had a lot of late nights. I mean, when you work on a production of that magnitude, you're trying to get things out, and oftentimes you have to do longer days. And in the TV industry, they've been trying to crack down on this, but in that time it was minimum 12-hour days. Sometimes it would become 14, 16 if you didn't get the shot. And so I think in the last few years they've been trying to get it down to 10-hour days on set. But there'd be a lot of late meals, and I think one of the things I was responsible for was making sure that like a second meal would show up, and I had to get really creative a lot of times. Like we would do Thai or Indian or pizza, and people would get tired of pizza because that's a very easy second meal to provide. And I think I remember one time getting some diner food from a really good diner, a Greek diner in Astoria, which is known because it's got a lot of great Greek food in Astoria. And Alec Baldwin came up to me and he's like, "Good job on the food tonight." And I was like, wow, cool. I get a pat on the back from Alec Baldwin for getting the second meal here. So I think, small rewards like that made the job worth it. And then I moved on to work on some films. I went up to Boston to work on a film called Bride Wars with Kate Hudson, and I'm blanking on some of the other actors that were in that film, but it was Anne Hathaway. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and what we did for that film was we shot Boston as if it were New York, which is a very interesting. It's kind of a thing you can do sometimes. If there are tax incentives in certain cities, and you might be able to save some money, you'll go to that city and make it look like you're in New York City. So that's what it actually is supposed to take place in New York, but it was shot in Boston. So. And those connections kept coming up, though, that I had made at the Law & Order show, that I had made at 30 Rock. And then that's when Ugly Betty, the opportunity to work on Ugly Betty, because they were moving the show from LA to New York for season 3. And Vanessa Williams, Michael Urie, Judith Light, America Ferrara, I met all these amazing actors. They were just absolutely lovely people. Would always come into the office and say, "Hello, how's it going?" And I felt it was a real family. I think when you work this many hours, so you're spending more time with the people that you're working with than you might be with your actual family, and a lot of times, which you start to develop familial bonds with those folks.
Is there anyone you still stay in contact with that? I know networking and stuff, that's a huge part, but
still in contact with all of these people across many Facebook groups. And, I actually started a Facebook group about 10 years ago or so. Maybe it was within the last 10 years, called the New York City Production and Film Community, TV and Film Community. And that has a lot of members, and there's posts in there often from people who I've worked with in the past. I think, again, keeping in touch with people, you never know who's going to give you an opportunity or what roads are going to converge again in the production world, because it really is kind of it's a small world. It's a tight-knit world as well.
Anything about White Collar? That's my all-time favorite show.
Wow, White Collar. So that was after Ugly Betty, and quite possibly one of the best crews I've ever worked with. All the way from Margot Myers and Andrew Sachs, who were the production manager and line producer. And my crew was incredible on that show. I felt really lucky. We were at Silver Cup Studios, which is a great studio. It's Silver Cup East, actually, at the time. And the cast of that show, again, I can't say enough good things about Matt Bomer and Tim DeKay and Tiffany Thiessen. I mean, just really incredible respect. I always felt like we were part of the team, and I think that's really important, because when you're working and you're doing things in the production office, it's nice to get some recognition every once in a while, because you're not directly attached to the set. You're kind of like this separate entity that's handling all these logistics, and sometimes it can feel like there are two factions. So there's an art department, production department, accounting. These and those departments aren't directly on set, And so in that particular, because there was a studio show, and so like the police, the FBI headquarters, the apartment, all those things that were in a studio. And so I have a great picture. I could probably unearth it, of the entire cast and crew on that white collar set. I'm in there somewhere, but maybe I can send that to you. You can cut to it right now. Yeah, that was a really special show. And actually just a few months ago, got to speak with Matt Bomer again. It was during White Collar where I started to get the seeds of like, I think I want to do more. I think I want to get out of the production office and be more involved with the creative aspect of things. And so I did one more TV show called Made in Jersey. And I think, I'm not going to say I hit my breaking point, but what occurred was Hurricane Sandy hit during the show was canceled after 4 episodes. And Hurricane Sandy then hit while we were wrapping out. And it was a really stressful and difficult time. And I said to myself, I'm going to take a break from this for a while. This isn't exactly what I want to be doing. At that point, I was production coordinating. And so I had climbed the ranks in the production office from secretary to assistant production coordinator to production coordinator. And the next job would have been a production supervisor or a production manager. And I was looking at what that job looked like. And I said, I don't know if I'm ready to do that right now. I want to be more creative. I want to be more involved in the day-to-day filming and the actual on-set productions. And one thing I will say, and this is a really, really, really important point that I like to make to people that are going into their career: do what you want to do from the outset. So when you start, try and do something that is aligned with what you think the vision of your life and your career is going to be, or at least in the same kind of parallel path. For me, I was still working in TV, but I was doing logistics, and I was like, how can I parlay this into being more creative? And honestly, all of the skills that I learned in the production office, I still practice on a day-to-day basis here, running my own company. But what I would say is, if you want to be a writer, you should write. If you want to be a director, you should direct. If you want to be a journalist, do some journalism. If you want to be on-camera talent, get in front of the camera and do those things as soon as you can to try and obviously develop the connections that are going to foster your career to go forward the way you want it to go.
After that, how did you transition into creating your own production company? Like, what was that like?
Sure.
So after I left Made in Jersey, I actually got a survival job helping out running a warehouse. It was still for Sony Pictures, honestly, because I was still in the Sony ecosystem and family, and I was helping with Sandy cleanup. The warehouse had flooded, and I said, I just can't work in another production office again right now. I need to take a moment, because literally after Made in Jersey, the line producer called me. He's like, hey, we're going to go work on Sherlock Holmes. And I was like, I need a moment, Jonathan. Jonathan Philly, John Michonne, great guys, really great guys. But I knew I needed a moment. I needed to take time for me at that time. So I just got this like easy warehouse management job. And I said, I'm also going to pursue filming. And I had actually just met my partner, and I got a dog, and all these like changes in my life were occurring. And he had a camera, a DSLR, a Canon 5D, and I started filming things. I went on Craigslist, and I just signed up. People were looking for shooters for free, looking for someone to shoot a wedding in Connecticut for $100. I went and I did it. I worked with this choir, and then I just started working with my friends. I just went on Facebook. I said, hey, I'm filming things for people. I'll do whatever you want, and I'll edit it. And I started teaching myself Final Cut, and I actually had a mentor at that time as well who was helping me out. His name's Ed Caraballo. He was fantastic, and he took me under his wing, and he kind of showed me how to use cameras and how to edit. And so I was trying to simultaneously learn all these things that I had known 10 years ago, and I had kind of gotten rusty working in production offices. And I started to see that there was a definite market for what I was doing in New York City, and that if I just kept promoting myself on Facebook and just saying like, hey, I'm out on a shoot today, I would take a selfie of me with the camera, you know, and kept going on Craigslist and trying to find jobs. And again, networking. I met two guys that had their own company called Two Market Media. And I started to see like, oh, you can create a media company and then you can like get all these jobs, and it sounds, I mean, it's like, it's official. Mm-hmm. So I think it was 2015 that I had gotten a job for a large advertising agency, and I was consistently doing videos for them. And that was more internal corporate film work. So maybe the CEO had to give a presentation, or a PowerPoint needed to be recorded with being presented to an audience. And I started to get these consistent jobs with them. They'd be hiring me every week, every couple weeks, 2 times a week sometimes. And I was producing all this content. And someone actually said, oh, you should, my email was at gmail.com. And someone said, oh, you should really like get a company email. Because I was, at that point, I was maybe called Blake Drummond Films or something like that. And they said, yeah, if you get a company email, it really like make you seem more substantial and like an authority. And I was like, okay, I got to get a company email. So then I ideated on names for a company, and I just searched. And Diagonal Media wasn't taken. And I thought, oh, that's cool. It's kind of like geometric, which I was always into geometry, and it works for me. So I'm just going to go with it. Got the domain, got the email, and then, also went through the effort of getting the LLC, which, limited liability corporation, which is just a protection to an individual, that the company is kind of separate, but also it helps when you're getting paid. Usually LLCs can get paid more quickly than individuals. So that was another reason why I actually started the company.
That's so cool. Like, it's so cool how you like built yourself up from like working in a production and then creating your own company. So what kind of content do you create? Like, what is it based off of?
Pre-pandemic and during pandemic, it's a little bit different, but also the same. I mean, we have a lot of global clients that are advertising agency specific. We also have a lot of individual clients. We have some nonprofits that we work with, and some other media companies that we help create content for. Mostly what we do is we create internal and external content that helps the company kind of disseminate their message. And that might be, again, a CEO presenting the new direction of a brand, or an interview between two people to get to know a new hire. And then some of the other content that we've gotten into, a lot of animation, a lot of design, illustration. And now, during these last 6 months, we've had to pivot. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we also found a niche in doing case study films, which are for advertising campaigns. And what those do is they get submitted to award shows like Cannes or Festival of Media. And there's this whole other world that is very competitive in the case film kind of, it's almost an industry. And so we've started to make some of those as well for campaigns for our clients.
I saw, like, I was looking on your website, you have like the oh my gosh, like there's original content too, and I was what are the 3 little shows that you have, or what are they called? The
brief, the good news, and we also did the in crowd.
Oh yeah.
So the idea there was we should be creating original content, and we're going to continue. We actually, in the pandemic, was when the brief started, and it's very much like your show here, just interviewing someone who's not to call myself an authority, but someone who knows something about, their industry. And, and then the good news, which actually now John Krasinski did one called The Good News. I mean, it wasn't an original idea when we first did it in terms of title, but we did an episode with the Urban Beekeeper and also at Bellworks. And that was supposed to be like spreading just positive vibes about like ecological and environmental good that is happening in a kind of a very cinematic way as well. I have an amazing team at this point. A few years ago, I brought on a business partner, Garrett, and then we hired some folks. And thankfully, during the pandemic, we haven't had to furlough anybody. We've had consistent work, and it's doing things just like what you're doing. Zoom call recording, editing them down to snackable, digestible pieces of content that an audience would want to, watch.
I researched you and I saw all the content and stuff. It's super well done. And I've been to Bellworks and stuff, so it was cool to see like a different side of it, because when I clicked on it, I was like, oh, what is this going to be about? What's their the story you have to find, which you have to find a story for each thing. So it was interesting to see a different perspective of that.
Right. Always, it's all about the story. It's all about the narrative.
You already talked about a little bit about storytelling and stuff, but what's your when you create, what's your, I don't know how to describe it, what's your favorite part? What's your direction that you take when you create?
Honestly, if I'm having a good time creating, I think the viewer will have a good time. And if I'm enjoying creating the content that we're making, I think that translates into the actual piece of content that's being created. And so for me, in terms of being a content creator, I'm also a business owner. So there is an aspect of I say yes to whatever comes along and then make it work. Figure it out is really maybe a motto of mine. And also, focusing on the job at hand. I think oftentimes for us as a company that has clients that have a very specific brand guideline and aesthetic and a look and feel, part of our genius internally with the staff is always being able to make sure our content matches what their brand kind of aesthetic is. So, every project is different as well. I think you have to look at them as like independent pieces that you're curating. And for me, everything should be very watchable. I don't want a viewer to get bored. So a lot of times, if it's just two talking heads, I think, how can we go to B-roll? Can we show some imagery? Can we get graphics? Can we show some titles? And now sometimes a client's budget might not, that might prevent you from doing all of that. But I want to create content that is dynamic and watchable, snackable, digestible, and easy to consume.
Yeah, that's something I'm working on, because I've been putting out these full interviews and people really enjoy them, but I'm working on making them smaller, more snackable, like you're saying.
I think an option for that is to do a 3-minute cut or a 5-minute cut, or segment them out into maybe five minutes, and they each have a separate topic, and then you can entice people to go watch the full interview. So if people want more, they can go do that research.
So were you the jobs that you had before quarantine, were you traveling a lot? Where did it take you?
Yeah, I mean, that is actually something I miss. And so for the past 6 months, only been in New York and New Jersey, but pre-COVID, we traveled a lot for work. I'm thankful that a few of my clients have flown me across the globe. I've been to Singapore. I've been to Finland, the UK, France several times, Mexico, all across the US at different cities. And yeah, these opportunities have been priceless. They've been because, you know, the travel is covered and you go there and you're doing a job that I enjoy. You know, I'm filming, I'm creating content. And you know, one of the most amazing trips was going to Scotland as well. You know, but going to Finland and seeing the Northern Lights and filming the Northern Lights was an absolute breathtaking experience. And also the Singapore trip was pretty cool. I was there for 3 days, which was like very short to do an 18-hour flight, but amazing time. I mean, 3 days, it felt like 3 weeks. Yeah, all the stuff we got to see was really incredible. I mean, and I think one of the things to be kind of aware of too is like focus on what's happening in the moment while you're doing it. Which, like, if you have a dream, like this was all part of my dream, and I guess I have to concentrate on like not always thinking about having more. You know, I mean, it's like I literally thought to myself 15 years ago, it'd be great to travel and film things, and now I am, and it's pretty cool if you put one foot in front of the other and you focus and you like work hard. Anything is possible.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so cool that you're like, it's not even like a job basically, right? It's like doing what you love and getting paid for it. So that's cool.
Sometimes it's a job, and then sometimes it really feels like I'm doing my hobby that I'm so passionate about.
Yeah. We were talking about like the projects that you've been working on. So what have you been doing now in quarantine? Sure. I saw some of your Zoom interviews and like some stuff like that. So
we're very lucky to have been able to pivot successfully during quarantine. Obviously, no in-person filming has gone on. Very, very limited here and there for us because all of our client offices are closed down. So we started off very slow in March, and then all of a sudden in April, I got a call from a friend. Again, back to kind of saying yes and being open to opportunities. I got a call from a friend, and he said, "Do you do post-production? There's a friend of mine needs a compiling editor." And I was like, "Yeah, of course we can do that." And it led to us doing the Saturday night Seder, which raised $3 million for the CDC. And that was actually that was done with Eric Bergen, who is an actor on Madam Secretary, who had done a show with Rosie O'Donnell to raise money for the Actors Fund. He was one of the producers of Saturday Night Seder. And after we did that job, he called us and he said, "Hey, I have a few more jobs for you to work on." It's led to 15 jobs with him. And they've all been fundraisers and this quarantine content. We've worked for UNICEF. We've worked for Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. We've been on calls with Hillary Clinton, President Obama, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, the talent that Eric has been able to get in these shows that we've directly worked with, again, Matt Bomer, Pete Buttigieg, I mean, Cher, Robert De Niro, like really, really big names, and they're available because they're home and they just have to turn on their computer. And so there's been some really amazing stories that come out of us being in quarantine. And I want to say it's also because we were ready. So on March 12th, we sent everybody home. We have 9 staff members. We sent everybody home with their iMac. We said, we're working from home now. We're going to figure it out. And we've figured out tools that have helped us collaborate. There's a lot of great stuff out there for video creators now that allow collaboration on libraries and editing. And so somehow we've pivoted, and I think post-quarantine it'll lead to even more jobs, I hope.
Do you have any specific stories from that show, from what is it called, the Seder, the Saturday
Night Seder?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were called on Thursday night, and the show was being published Saturday. So Saturday, the Seder was coming. So we got called on Thursday, and we had to work Friday overnight into Saturday. And I think one of the things was after we got off the phone, I got off the phone with my business partner, and it was Thursday night, and I said, Garrett, I don't know if we can do it. And Garrett, ever the optimist, said, yes, we can. And I said, all right, well, you might have to do a majority of the overnight work on Friday. I mean, I'll help, but I don't know if I can put in a whole overnight shift. And Garrett and I, along with Jonah and Sydney on our team, we worked overnight Friday and we got the whole edit together. Now, we didn't edit every piece of Saturday Night Seder. They had a lot of editors that gave us kind of finished drop-in segments, but it was kind of down to the wire. And seeing it go live and seeing it get the attention and the viewership, they also submitted it for an Emmy nomination. That they didn't get nominated, but I'm sure that some awards will come its way. That is a story, again, that just kind of galvanizes the idea of say yes, even though you might be unsure. If you have the capability to handle it, do it, because you don't know what it's going to lead to. And that opened us up into all of these projects that we've been doing over the last, 5 months.
That's awesome. And I think this is my last question, but what kind of clients do you like? What's your target demographic, let's say? We
take on any client. We work from, big to small, some of the largest companies in the world, and nonprofits. We've worked with the Girl Scouts. We've worked with Comcast. For us, we just want to work with a client that wants to collaborate and that wants to create really great and dynamic content. Mm-hmm. So it really doesn't matter who the client is. And we have a very kind of large breadth of diversification in terms of clients. So I think that also is a really good point. It's like diversify what you do, keep a lot of irons in the fire, because again, that led us to being ready for anything. And for instance, learning how to live stream or to do that type of thing. I mean, one day, Brit & Co., which was one of our older clients, they have since, kind of in-housed everything, which is dangerous for a production company like mine when in-housing is happening. But for Brit & Co., I was one of their main video producers a few years ago, and they said, do you know how to live stream? And I said, yes. And I knew nothing about live streaming. And I ran to B&H, and I bought a bunch of live stream gear, and I bought a new laptop, and then I watched a bunch of YouTubes, and I went down. I'm like, I'm ready, and so learning just how to live stream now a few years later, we're somewhat of an authority on live streaming, and our clients come to us for that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I know I've said it 100 times in here. It's like, work hard, network, try not to burn bridges. And, I think try and do what you love.
That was a good wrap up. Yeah, you did awesome. It was great getting to talk to you and hear your story. It's inspiring to hear. It's like you have a really cool story. It was great to hear.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I definitely I really love doing this. I love talking to people, and I love doing interviews.
You're very good at it. I'll tell you that right now.
Thank you.
As hard as it is to get established and to really make the client contacts, and it was so worth it.